Prompt, 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 and working code spills out. It feels like magic. Until it hits production and breaks, it compiled fine. It just solved the wrong problem. The intent was never written down. Welcome to AI Techbook. Today, spec-driven development, why the agent keeps writing the wrong code, and the workflow that gets it to write what you actually meant. Here's the shift. For years, the code was the source of truth. The spec, if it existed, was a stale doc nobody read. That's flipping. We're moving from code is the source of truth to intent is the source of truth. A spec is a contract for how your code should behave. And with an agent, that spec becomes the source of truth it uses to generate the code, test it, and validate it. The key word is executable. A good spec doesn't just guide the agent, it directly generates the implementation. You write what the agent writes the code. Prompting your way to working code has a name now, vibe coding. And it's genuinely great for a quick prototype. It gets unreliable fast on a serious application or an existing code base. Here's why. A vague prompt forces the model to guess at thousands of unstated requirements. It makes reasonable assumptions, and some of them are wrong. Sometimes the code doesn't compile. Worse, sometimes it compiles and solves the wrong problem. We treat these agents like search engines when they're really literal-minded pair programmers. Brilliant. But they need unambiguous instructions. Spec-driven development turns this into a repeatable loop. First, you set the project's guiding principles, the constitution. Then you specify the what, the requirements, the user stories. Then you plan how, the tech stack, the architecture. Then you break the plan into tasks. Then the agent implements them. GitHub's open source spec kit gives you exactly these steps. And every step writes a real file, a spec, a plan, a task list that lives in your repo, not a throwaway chat. Claude Code frames the same idea as 4 phases: explore, plan, implement, commit. Where plan mode is read only, so the agent researches before it touches a line. This is where a tool like Kiro gets specific. A spec is 3 parts: requirements, design, and tasks. And the requirements aren't vibes. They're written in a structured form called ears. The pattern is simple. When some trigger, the system shall do some response. Watch, when a user submits valid registration data, the system shall create a new user account. That sentence is unambiguous. And notice, it's already a test case. The design phase then reads your actual code base and produces interfaces, schemas, and endpoints. The tasks get sequenced, and each one links back to a requirement. Nothing's left to a guess. Here's the mindset that makes it pay off. The code can be regenerated, the spec lasts, it lives in your repo as long-term memory, guiding the agent as the app evolves. Because the spec's criteria are testable, you do one more thing, you give the agent a check it can run, tests, a build, a screenshot, and have it show evidence instead of claiming it's done. The loop closes itself. Your attention moves up a level, you review the spec and the evidence. Not every line of the diff. Time spent making the spec precise pays off more than time spent watching the implementation. Now, this is not always on. If the scope is clear and the fix is small, a typo, a log line, a rename, ask the agent to do it. If you could describe the diff in one sentence, skip the plan. Spec-driven development earns its overhead on the other end, a real feature. A change where a regression would be expensive, work a teammate has to understand, or anything an agent is going to build largely on its own. Vibe coding is still right for quick exploration. The skill is knowing which mode the moment calls for. If you want to try it, here's the landscape. GitHub Spec Kit is open source and works with whatever agent you already use. Amazon's Kiro is a whole IDE built around specs with the ears requirements we saw. Claude Code isn't a dedicated spec tool, but its plan mode, plus a project spec file, do exactly this. Tessl treats the spec itself as the durable, registered artifact. Different surfaces, one principle, the spec is the source of truth. You can start today with the agent you already have. Spec-driven development in one breath. Intent is the source of truth, not the code. You run the loop, specify, plan, tasks, implement, and every step leaves a real file behind. You write the requirements testable so the spec can check the code. Then you move up a level, review the spec and the evidence, not every diff, skipping it only when the change is one line. Write the spec and let the agent write the code. The whole thing one screen. Intent is the source of truth, not the code. A vague prompt leaves thousands of requirements unstated and the agent guesses wrong. You run the loop, specify, plan, tasks, implement, and each step writes a real file. You write the requirements testable in ears, so the spec can check the code. You review the spec, not every diff, skipping it only for one-line changes. That's spec-driven development. Write the spec and let the agent write the code. If this made it click, share it with one person who's still vibe coding. Subscribe to AI Tech Book, one engineering idea every episode. Thanks for building with us.